and welcome to Crime Bytes, the show where we talk about some truly bizarre and disturbing crime cases. My name is Liz, and today is True Crime Tuesday. So this will be our second episode exploring the concept of Follie A, and we are going to look at an instance where madness was shared between family members. Did any of you guys see the movie yet? I've seen a lot of bad reviews actually, and I'm a little surprised, but the first one I thought was really good, like good enough to still go see this one. I don't know, plus Harley. Let me know what you thought about it if you did see it. I'm still dog sitting my family's doggies all week. Then I might get myself there. We'll see. You know when you want to go on a date but not just with anyone? Oh well. Just strong, right? Here's your plug to stay just strong and grab 10% off site-wide with this coupon code. I've been wearing this basic black hoodie everywhere lately. It's been getting really cold in Massachusetts. My son likes this little infinity logo, and he said it means that I'm infinitely strong, and I love that too. And I also really love this style they have. And they have it in red, so yeah, I might have to. And check them out, stay strong, and use my coupon code to get 10% off. Don't get any of that shared madness this winter. All right, let's get on with today's story. And today we're heading to France in the early 1900s, specifically Le Mans, which is located almost central, a little northwest in France, but it's got a beautiful riverway, as you can see, like so many European cities do. We have two different families to meet in today's story. The first I will introduce you to is the Lancelin family, specifically Leonie and her daughter Genevieve. Leonie was married to Renee, who was a retired solicitor. He did well enough for his family that he was able to afford live-in hired help. In 1926, the Lancelin family would hire a woman named Papin to be a live-in maid. After doing a great job for a couple of months, Christine convinced the Lancelins to hire her sister Leah as a live-in maid as well. They would agree, and Leah would come move into the Lancelins as a live-in maid. So at that time, they would spend most of their days working as maids. Christine would do most of the cooking, and Leah was described as being a handmaid, so she did more of the housework. They would put in extremely long days, and then they would just retire upstairs to a room that they shared for the evening. It's said that the sisters were very quiet and didn't really do much with whatever free time that they did have from their duties around the house. Now, this arrangement may not sound ideal to many of us today, but for the Papin sisters, it was actually really great. They didn't have much growing up, and the Lancelin house was considered to be pretty good to work for if you were working as a live-in maid. The girls got to eat full meals, they had a place to stay, and they even had a heater in the room that they shared, which apparently was good back then. So as far as live-in maid jobs went, they had it pretty good. And this was great because the sisters came from pretty humble beginnings and spent some time in orphanages and convents because their mother couldn't care for them. Beyond that, their mother had kind of insisted that they get these jobs and send her a large portion of their earnings, which was somewhat common back then. When Madame Leonie found out about this, so she put a stop to it and insisted that the girls keep the money that they were earning. So for the first few years there, the sisters had an extremely good relationship with Leonie and would even kind of look to her as a mother figure. But after a few years went by, it's said that Leonie would start to fall into a depression. And this is unfortunate, but what would make it worse was that she would start to take things out on Christine and Leah, and she would follow them around and criticize their cleaning. She would even go as far as to begin to physically assault them when they didn't clean to her standards. She was doing things as bad as taking their heads and bashing them into walls. Now, Leonie also had an older daughter who had gotten married and moved out, so it really was just her and her younger daughter Genevieve at home together all day. So it went from being a really good arrangement at first to over the years becoming extremely toxic, with the mother and daughter at home with the two sisters who were burdened with almost impossible standards of cleanliness. Unfortunately, everything would come to a disastrous end on February 22nd of 1933, 7 years after the Papins started working for the Lancelins. It started like any other day at the Lancelin household. Leonie and Genevieve had gone about their morning and had decided to head out for some shopping. Christine and Leah were going about their morning and doing their housework. Christine was apparently ironing when a fuse blew. As you can imagine, Madame Leonie was not happy, and when she got home, she started right in on Christine. That evening, Monsieur Rene was supposed to meet his wife and daughter at a dinner party, but when he did not find them there, he went home to see what was going on. He found the door of his house bolted from the inside and none of the lights were on. He had the police assist him, and they broke into his house through one of the parlor windows, and when they got in, they found the lights were still not working. They used flashlights to see what was going on, and what they found was just beyond horrific. The first thing that they saw was an eyeball on the floor, which was so coated in blood that the carpet was described as having a red, mossy texture. Gross. They would find Leonie and Genevieve just basically in an unrecognizable state. So the women had been beaten severely, and worse than this, their nails had been pulled out and their eyes had been gouged out. Leonie's eyes were found folded up in a scarf that was tied around her neck. They had been stabbed as well and positioned in a very grotesque manner. Horrified, they continued to search the house, and Renee was worried they were about to find 2 more bodies, but when they reached Christine and Leah's room, they found it locked as well. And when they got the door open, they found the girls in bed holding one another. Some sources say they were naked, others say they were in kimonos, but what is agreed is that they were holding each other in bed. Apparently, when Leonie confronted Christine, Christine would say she attacked her, and she would pick up this pewter jug and just smash her in the head with it. Genevieve would come to her mother's aid, of course, but something had just snapped inside of Christine, and she was just in a rage. And Leah would come in from the kitchen and see Christine fighting off the 2 women, and Christine would just look up and see Leah and yell, "I'm going to massacre them." And then she would tell Leah to help her bash their heads in and gouge their eyes out. And Leah would do just that. The girls would attack their employers for anywhere from a half hour to 2 hours, according to different reports, and the women didn't die right away either. The sisters would use a knife and hammer until they stopped moaning, they would say. Then they kind of would prepare their bodies as if they were going to cook them like rabbits. And I don't know how else to say that. They literally looked at a rabbit being prepared in a cookbook and did the same thing to their bodies. Then they just went upstairs, cleaned themselves off for a little bit, and went to bed together. That's it. The girls would be taken in for questioning, of course, and they admitted to what they did readily, but they would claim that it was in self-defense. The next day, Christine would say that she was the one who committed both of the murders, but no one was buying it, and Leah was adamant in her participation, so they both were tried. Now, let's go over the sisters' history a tiny bit more thoroughly. They were born to parents Clemence and Gustave, and were actually their second and third children. In 1901, Clemence would marry Gustave, and she would fall pregnant with their first child, Amelia. Clemence would have an affair, and it would really kind of shake things up to where Gustave would try and move the family, but Clemence would refuse, saying that she was going to kill herself. So they stayed, and the next year Christine was born, and this was in 1905. Shortly after she was born, Christine was sent to live with her aunt and uncle, where she stayed until she was 7. And Leah was born in 1911 and went to live with a different uncle. In 1912, Clemence would find out that her husband Gustave had sexually abused Amelia, and she would divorce him, which is great. And what's not great about this is she would go on to blame Amelia for the abuse that she endured and send her away to live at a convent, which ultimately worked out for her because she liked it there and became a nun. She would end up sending Christine and Leah to the same convent to learn life skills until they were 15, at which point she would start sending them out to work at maids so that they could send her their checks. So as you can see, what a circus we have here, and I mean that in the nicest way possible, I guess, to everyone but Clemence and Gustave. What a horror show there, it seems. Anyhow, to add to that bit of family history, they had some mental disorders in there, and from that, you've got a perfect storm for the events that took place in today's story. The girls would be studied, obviously, and many people would conclude that Christine was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. She did have an episode while she was in prison where she tried to gouge her own eyes out and had to be held with a straitjacket at that time. She compared it to how she felt when she was committing the murders. Leah's personality was described as having completely disappeared into Christine's. She was described as being a person of lower intelligence and just being very passive, but not having any real mental illnesses. Together, the sisters were described as having shared psychosis or folie à deux. Their isolation from the outside world definitely helped to fuel this. Rumors also fueled that because they were found in bed together and because of a few of their behaviors when they were observed together, that they were also romantically involved with one another as well, but this has not been confirmed or denied. So the girls would be tried 8 months after the crime was committed, and Christine's sentence would be death by guillotine, but this would be commuted to a full life sentence, as was common for women in her time. She would barely even serve her sentence because she was in so much distress from being separated from Leah that she ended up starving herself to death just 4 years after the murder occurred. And Leah would end up receiving a 10-year sentence and serve 8 of those years due to good behavior. She would be released and get a job as a hotel maid under a different name. She would go on to live to at least 1982, but there was a man who claimed to have found her in a nursing home while creating a film about the sisters. The woman he claimed to have found had been partially paralyzed due to a stroke and unable to speak, and has since passed away in 2001. So either way, Leah was able to go on and live out the rest of her life after she was separated from Christine. What do you guys think about this one? I think they obviously had an interesting start, but the change of tone in the house while they were working, the woman they looked up to with so much affection, more affection than their mother, which granted was not saying much, kind of ended up turning on them in a way. I kind of think that that had a lot to do with it as well. Either way, it's a fascinating case, and one of the top cases used as an example of folie à deux. Christine was clearly the more dominant sister, and Leah was 6 years younger than her and obviously very impressionable. Either way, it's an extremely fascinating case. So, as always, I want to try and stay on a more positive note, and to be honest, I'm struggling here a bit lately. Fall's coming over here, and as far as news goes right now, I feel like it's nonstop with the hurricanes Helene and Milton. And so I want to highlight a group that's already down there providing relief work to the victims of these latest disasters, Team Rubicon. Team Rubicon is a humanitarian effort that's led by veterans. They're helping to clear the area, helping people with their houses, really just doing everything that they're able to help get the area clear and functioning again. They do run on donations, so if you would like to help them out in that way or learn more about what they do, you can do that at teamrubiconusa.org. Alright guys, I'll be back next week with another Follie A deux case, and until then, please stay safe out there. Bye!